Minority filmgoers account for nearly half of Hollywood's box office receipts, despite the documented absence of faces of color on screen and in leadership roles behind the scenes. It's not complicated. Fans of color support content that speaks to them, regardless of the complexions depicted. Case in point, HBO's mega-hit series Game of Thrones, while it centers on a fictionalized mythic Europe, black viewers have embraced the show's mix of high fantasy and high drama as their own. And so naturally, black social media was inflamed by the news that the show's main producers, in choosing the premise for their next HBO project, had decided on an alternate history in which the Confederacy won the Civil War and African Americans remained enslaved into the present day. It even has an easy-to-remember name: Confederate. The fallout has had HBO doing damage control for the last week, and a new campaign from the woman behind the Oscars So White hashtag has been picking up traction from Twitter to television. Also, in answer, mega producer Will Packer and master satirist Aaron Magruder announced this week that their Amazon Studios project, in which freed slaves created a thriving nation in the post-war South, is in, quote, very, very active development. I think my guest and I can relate a bit more to the title of this collaboration. The duo is called Black America. Joining me now from Washington is April Reign, creator of the No Confederate and Oscar So White campaign hashtags on social media. And here in New York, we have filmmaker ReBecca Theodore-Vachon, co-host of the Cinema and Noir radio show. Thank you both for being with me.
Thank you for having us.
April, let me go to you. You have been out there really active on social media. Oscar So White, which many of us were in the streets complimenting what you had done with hashtag. Now you're, I can't say beating the drums, let me say hitting your laptop and putting the pressure on around the Confederate. Why? What is your fear? What is your warning here?
Our concern here is that the commodification of black pain for others' enjoyment must stop. This can't be an alternate history when we have people like Dylan Roof, who is a Confederate flag waver, walking into a house of peace and killing 9 black people in cold blood. When we have the textbooks in the state of Texas literally rewriting history so that Africans and African Americans were no longer enslaved people in this country, but merely servants, as if they were just waiting for a better job on LinkedIn. The HBO can do a much better job than this particular show, and we would like to see them open this up to other opportunities for marginalized communities to have their stories told.
Now, let me ask you, ReBecca, we have on the one side the Confederate that we don't know when it will show. I understand they haven't even started the writing, but it's certainly slated. And you have on the other side Black America on the Amazon series, which is going to show blacks controlling their own country. Are we seeing flip sides of the same kinds of things, or are we seeing, again, because of the domination of whites behind the cameras and in executive positions, that there's an unfair depiction of blacks, and every once in a while something like Black America is put in to try to calm the waters in terms of the broader media world?
Right. I think we need to look at and interrogate where these stories are coming from. As far as Black America, these are black creatives. This is Aaron Magruder, this is Will Packer. On the other hand, we have the 2 white creators of Game of Thrones, who, if you watch Game of Thrones in the past 7 seasons, their depiction of people of color are usually slaves, or they're under the order of a white woman, the Daenerys character. And I think people really need to interrogate that. To what I understand, the two creators of Game of Thrones have never chimed in on the current state of Black America. Yes, they have signed Nichelle and Malcolm Spellman, who are the two Black executive producers and writers. You know, and they've gone on NPR and said that, you know, they are not the patsies, they're not, they are fully partners in this creation. But that doesn't alleviate my fear, because, you know, they're saying that they're equal partners, which means that they're equally complicit, which means that they didn't challenge the two white creators of Game of Thrones on what their premise was. The premise is it's an alt history. It's not alt history. As Bree Newsome said, how can you create an alt history when people don't even know the real history?
April, you know, one of the things that you alluded to was giving opportunities to others in terms of people of color, because there has been a shutout by a lot of creative, talented people being able to get access to a lot of the airwaves, a lot of the projects that should be financed and all. So we're talking about a community that provides half of the moviegoers, half of a lot of the viewership, but nowhere near that in terms of getting a lot of their talent and a lot of their creative work out there. And when people like my group, Nash Action Network, others come and raise that, oh, y'all are shaking us down, when in fact they're shaking down the consumers by enjoying their support, getting advertising dollars from it, but not letting those same communities, creative artists, have access to be able to expose and to give the public the benefit of their talent.
That's exactly right, Reverend Al. What I have always said with Oscar So White is that the moviegoers, the people who pay their hard-earned money every day to sit in that darkened theater, should be able to see themselves on screen. And that's regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender, ability or disability, or First Nation status. So what Benioff and Weiss, the producers of Game of Thrones, could have done and can still do is to use their significant leverage with HBO and open up the process to traditionally underrepresented communities, to allow other stories to be told rather than this alt history of their own. One, in fact, wonders when this show was greenlit, how many people of color, how many people of marginalized communities were in the room, because that's important. We need to start from the script stage, from the pitch idea stage, all the way to what's seen on screen.
Who is making the decisions, Rebecca, is part of the problem. We went through this with Sony a few years ago with Amy Pascal. Who is in the room making the decisions, April's raising, which I have to say is something we all have agreed to and on for some time.
Right. And if you look at Game of Thrones' track record, and this is the thing, everybody is saying that they want to give the show a chance. But again, we have to go back to Game of Thrones, right, which is their first and most successful show. To my knowledge, not one Black director has ever directed an episode of Game of Thrones. And in front of the camera and behind the camera as well. Are there any Black writers of Game of Thrones? It seems to me that it's very interesting that the one time that Benioff and Weiss have actually reached out to Black creators is when they want to do a show that shows a alt history of Black people still being oppressed in present day, which is really an insult to our culture and also to our talent.
Well, I've got to leave it there, but thank you both. Always good to talk to you, April Reign and ReBecca Theodore-Vachon. Glad to have you with us. Up next, shedding light on the rioting and civil unrest in the Motor City 50 years ago, based on a new historic thriller film, Detroit. We'll be right back.